This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. John, a week ago, we were talking about the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the end of the world.
Yes, that's what I called it.
There was not an apocalypse, but an apocalypse of news seemed to have happened over the past
You suggested
week.
that other things might happen that would rival that in newsworthiness, and I could not imagine it.
And we should have probably placed a wager on that.
Probably.
Because you'd be giving me some money right now. So we do have the president saying he's not going to leave office peacefully in
Without
terms of transition of power if he loses. We do have a debate coming up tomorrow night on Tuesday night. And we also learned on Sunday night that the president's not paid taxes in a while, and what taxes he has paid have been pretty little. So you pick of those three topics, where do you want to begin today? You want to begin with tax returns?
Yes.
Let's do that. So how big of a story is this? We've heard about his taxes before. This isn't the
We've
first
heard about
time.
his taxes. I don't think this is any great surprise. And I don't think it makes that much difference. I think his base is pleased that he's smart enough not to pay taxes, and that just shows that he's, plus they don't believe in taxes for the government anyway, because the government just gives money to poor people. So I don't think it changes really the percentages in the polls all that much, but I just like revelatory things that fit my narrative of Trump, and this does. Basically, the Times, if I might, there's a whole lot of detail. It's marvelous reporting, more than most people will want to wade through. But if I might give a microcosm of one section of it, most of the actual money he made the few years before he became president was for being a celebrity on TV. A shallow celebrity doing a full reality show. That was his real money.
Quite different than the setup that we have here today.
This is a real reality show. And I don't get $425 million over a few years from it.
Close to that, but not quite.
So that's what real money he got, cash. It was from being on TV and having a show where he said, "You're fired," basically. He took that money, and what other money he could, I would say beg, borrow still, but let's say borrow. And he put it into building things which are shrines to himself, to his, built in his megalomaniacal image. A golf course, a golf resort, a hotel, and they all lost so much money that he was able to use those losses to offset the real money he had made being a banal celebrity on TV saying, "You're fired." So that's his business model. We got his man in Arkansas, Bud Cummins, saying today, "This is just the U.S. tax code. It's just legal." I suspect maybe it is, although there's so much detail, you got to wonder, did he take too much money on some of these write-offs, these donations? And the Times also reports that the audit is pending, has been long underway, and he has a potential big liability coming. So all of that is, but the central story is one I already knew, but it's just classic here. Money is, what money he actually has is celebrity. His business ventures are self-shrines that lose money. And the government and his creditors are paying the salaries of all of his employees. That's what we've got. Like it or not, that's what we've got.
I think there's two big takeaways for me beyond what you've talked about there. One is the fact that the New York Times alluded to they have more stories coming on this. This has the potential, to me, to be the drip, drip, drip of the email scandal that Hillary Clinton waded through in 2016, where every day you were afraid to touch the newspaper because you didn't know what was going to be coming out next. I think the other thing is that we found out that somewhere between $300 to a little over $400 million of debt that the president has is coming due in the very near future. And that, to me, speaks to the whole issue of, is he compromised somehow, which we've long suspected that he was, and has that played into foreign policy somehow?
Well, now you're going to an entirely new level in the scenario, which is beyond what I had described. And already today, the White House is saying, I thought this is typical Trump and Trump White House response. Well, this is fake news. Who knows if these are the real tax returns? But by the way, they show that I'm smart. You know, I managed to avoid taxes. But the next level would be what you say. Oh, and the other thing they say is, I thought these tax returns, if they ever came out, were going to show that I was beholden to Russia. Where's that? Well, you just suggested something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say that specifically.
It's not in the tax returns. It's
No,
in
you don't have to list that
debt.
you're in the hole to a Russian oligarch on your tax return, you know, necessarily.
Right.
But it could, if you have debt coming due, and if you can't pay it, then you've got to do some accommodation, right? Now we're getting into a new level of conspiracy or problem. We're not there yet, so I wasn't analyzing that yet. That's next week, maybe.
Okay.
But
What a cliffhanger you've just left us.
there
with.
is, we continue to have this regard by our president for Russia and Putin. Just a seeming matter of respect. That's not necessarily reflected so much in policy as it is in Trump's personal regard for, it's either that he just loves despots or there's something else.
Admires a guy that maybe takes a democracy and turns it into a lifelong presidency.
Well, you're getting a little bit incendiary.
Well, I'm just, I'm trying to
I
move
thought
you
you were here.
along, John.
Yeah. I'm not prepared to go that far until the New York Times does some more fine reporting. But we got a lot of reporting right now. Well, that's not going to make any difference to anybody, I don't think, other than reinforcing what we already suspected.
So could the presidential debate on Tuesday night make a difference to someone?
I think it could. I think it could. If I wasn't paid to watch it, I would not watch it.
Why not?
Because Donald Trump makes me ill and Joe Biden makes me nervous. And it's all going to be there on display. Mm-hmm. Trump being his blustery self and attacking, and he's going to be in a mood to counterattack with Lord knows what, based on what the New York Times has done. They're already saying today that this has to do with Hunter Biden somehow. Hunter Biden has got some money that he got from somebody in Russia. So we're going to hear, and then Joe is a very serious, fervent family man. How's he going to react with his son being under attack?
His aides are worried that he's going to blow a gasket.
Blow a gasket, and then he also, to be candid, and this was true even when Joe was younger, he has a tendency to blab a little bit, to get going and not go anywhere, or to get going and say something that's not. So, like you said, what he said the other day, we've had 200 million people die of coronavirus, in the United States. No, 200,000. It's a little difference. Well, then Obama once said he'd been to all 57 states, so those kind of mistakes happen. But
we could pick some Trump
we
verbal
could.
gaffes if we wanted to as
I
well.
think I fear an octogenarian, a near octogenarian cage fight, and can it make any difference? I think oddly, we've got this incumbent president who has so many issues. We have a new revelations about his taxes, which are a major story. But I think tomorrow, the onus is all on Joe Biden. Can you get through it competently? You're ahead in the polls. So somehow, tomorrow night, I don't think will be about Trump. We know we're going to get blustery, explosive, misstated performance from Trump. How's Joe going to handle? I'm afraid that's the storyline.
Well,
tomorrow.
the litmus test is that the Trump campaign has set this bar of expectation for Biden that he can't string two sentences together, that he's on some sort of performance-enhancing drugs for a debate. And I think that if he strings together some cohesive statements, he allays those concerns with the majority of Americans who just want to see with their own eyes and ears
what you just said
what
again.
they're talking about.
What I just said. It's about Joe Biden. You just handicapped it. If Joe does well, it'll really be great. The bar is low for Joe, set by Trump. So if Joe does okay, if Joe is competent, good. I'm just saying the story tomorrow night is Joe Biden. It's not Donald Trump. Remarkably, because the campaign so far has been, the polls reflect, it's Trump versus Trump, with Joe in the default position. And Joe has tomorrow night to show, I'm worthy of the default position. So we've got a president who has myriad serious issues, but he gets a pass for however he behaves tomorrow night, and it's all on the other guy. That's how I size it up.
All right. Well, we'll be Monday morning quarterbacking
We
that
will.
afterwards, and we'll get to some football a little bit later on.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Let's talk about what's happening in the 2nd Congressional District race here. We've got Congressman French Hill, State Senator Joyce Elliott. Big mail pieces, social media pieces coming out really negatively attacking Joyce Elliott, saying she's too radical, too liberal, too divisive to be elected to Congress. What's your take on what you're seeing in that race right now? What does it tell you about the state of that race?
Well, you had your poll, and Joyce Elliott was within 2 points. They've produced some more dubious polls that show her actually ahead. To me, dubious. I don't think she is a serious threat to win it, but she's got French Hill worried right now. And what French Hill's campaign is choosing to do is let's fight back, but let's fight back only in a targeted way under the radar. Let's be nice in our TV advertising. Let's have the congressman talking about all he's done to protect us policy-wise from China, if he's done anything. That's what they say. But meantime, let's use this social media, Facebook, which can target our audience, and let's send these very incendiary accusations, misrepresentative really of the photography and the messages in it. Let's put that on Facebook for $50, $100, $200, and for a couple of days, and let's feed it to these people we know from Facebook's data analytics voted for Trump but don't vote otherwise.
Similar to direct mail into
direct
a household
mail,
or a zip code, right?
That's where we are, and that's what's going on. So Hill's campaign needs to peel some points off of her. They're being very negative, but they're not being negative in a way that Joe Q. Public watching TV sees. He doesn't see that.
Not in a mass communication way.
Right. So he manages to look nice on TV and use this new social media phenomenon to direct more incendiary, more unfair, more inappropriate ads to people who will be driven by it because we know from 4 years ago they voted for Trump. They haven't voted since, so they're probably going to vote this time. And let's remind them that Joyce Elliott did these things which she didn't entirely do. So it's interesting from the standpoint of how she's got them scared a little bit. It's also interesting in how this is a study in the new politics and a new media, and how you can go under radar with your accusations.
Yep. So above the radar, we are seeing in a state Senate race down in South Arkansas some attacks on incumbent State Senator Bruce Malek. We saw, he's a Democrat,
right.
We saw Republican Senate leader Jim Hendren come to his defense. How unusual is that?
I would, as I say in tomorrow's column, if we still ran presses, we should probably stop them. But then I qualified to say, we should stop the presses if we still ran them, on the general point that a Republican is criticizing his party for attacks in a campaign on a Democrat. But then I say, no, keep them running because it's Hendren, and Hendren is different. Jim Hendren has been open, saying that he is that he is disdainful of politics as usual, that governing, as he began to take a special interest in as he tried to help Uncle Asa run the state, requires bipartisanship and working together. And he is now, and he is disdainful of a lot of the modern rhetoric, so that it's Hendren doing it is not a stop the presses guy. It's kind of to be expected. There are a couple of things here. I'll just make the point. Basically, this is what I fear happening, largely through the work of this Gilmore group locally in Little Rock doing Republican advertising. The partisan dysfunction of Washington is being introduced to Arkansas. We've been sort of exempt.
I don't know if it's been introduced. We've seen some pretty rough ads over the years.
Okay.
I mean, I can go back the last decade and pull quite a few.
Reintroduced and intensified, if I might. But basically, we've had governors like Beebe and Asa Hutchinson during this right-wing revolt who have managed to keep the government running by being sort of in the center or center-right and pragmatic and avoiding and marginalizing those sorts of things. And we've had a Democratic minority in the state legislature that would go along with needed policy that Asa and Hendren and responsible Republicans would propose because it was the right thing to do, rather than doing what they might do in Washington, which is use their ability to block appropriations and blow everything up. That's what would happen in Washington. Hasn't happened here. So in this campaign, we've got the Republicans, this is what upsets Hendren, we've got the Republican Party and Republican ad agency people attacking a Democratic senator, a conservative Democratic senator in South Arkansas, for voting for things that the Republican leadership, that Asa Hutchinson and the Republican leadership of the legislature needed him to vote for to get them passed because they were responsible things to do. Converting some element of our retail taxation to internet sales, for example. Yep. Perfectly practical, necessary things. We're going to wind up, like Washington, I fear, because we're going to beat any Democrat who works with a Republican, and maybe vice versa, but that's the dynamic now. We're going to wind up simply with no one, whatever Democrats are left in the legislature, will be unwilling to work with Republicans on responsible policy because they're going to get attacked for it in mailers and directed social media
Well, you could also have Republicans not willing to work with Republicans.
I just said it could go both ways, but right now the dynamic is that the Republicans need to govern. And the Democrats could, if they can get 9 senators and 26 House members, which is iffy, they could block nearly every appropriation.
They could.
And if they're going to just get demonized, I mean, this idea that Bruce Malek is in bed with Cortez and Sanders and Bernie Sanders and Cortez and Kamala Harris, you know. Give me a break. There used to be rural conservative to centrist Democrats who could survive in this state. They're nearly extinct now, and the Republicans now appear interested in let's just get rid of all of them.
Yeah, particularly down in South Arkansas.
Right.
There's some other Southeast Arkansas races that are fitting the similar mold. Lastly, let's talk some Razorback football.
Okay.
We saw one pretty good half of Razorback football followed by one not so good half. So the reward for Arkansas in playing Georgia well for a half is now they get to go play Mississippi State, whose quarterback, if you may or may not have
passed
seen,
for 1,000,000 yards.
Maybe one of the front runners for the Heisman already. So it was over 600 yards. When does the Twitter account for sports ramp back up for you, John?
Well, I announced Saturday to all my many devoted Twitter followers that I will be live tweeting the game this afternoon. And if they are inept as usual, I will make fun. And if they do better than we expect, I will join you all in pleasure. This way, I'm personally insulated against for whatever might happen. It's a way I cope with being a 66-year-old lifetime Razorback football fan in the modern era. But then the game was sort of not much to tweet about. When they went ahead 7-0 on the pass to Burks, I said, right now the Hogs are number 3 in the country because Georgia was number 4. And an ASU person said, no, ASU's number 3 in the country.
I believe that was Jeff Hankins.
I didn't want to give him credit, but we beat Kansas State, which just beat Oklahoma, which I think was number 3. So that was the level of, I'd like everyone else. Good for them in the first half. They appear to be coached. The defense appears to have some coaching and a plan and to tackle, and that's good. It's sad that we find encouragement in losing 37-10, but that's where we are, and that's good. And I want to be positive. But on the other hand, after sleeping on it, I ramped it up a little Sunday. I said, basically, they're still horrible. Georgia was inept, frankly. They got in their own way for the first half, and then when they decided to play in the second half, it was 32-3. And Arkansas, you know, how's Arkansas in the red zone? We don't know. They never got to the red zone. They barely got out of their own end of the field, except on the long pass and the field goal. So then, in the SEC, you think we're better, but what happens now? Well, we go to Mississippi State, Starkville, a place I would think Arkansas could compete with. They just beat the defending national champions with this new coach Leach and this passing attack that looks all world. And I'm wondering, oh Lord, and we got what's going to happen this week?
And then Auburn after that.
There's no relief.
Alabama's down the road.
I'm still picking 0-10 as the record, but I think it's going to be 10 moral victories.
There
0-10.
are no moral victories, John.
I've read
no
that.
moral victories.
I hear the Arkansas fans taking them. And Sam Pittman is such a nice, unaffected guy. And you know he's working hard, and this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and he loves being here. I just want him to succeed. And I don't know what success is in Arkansas right now. I think 2 wins would put him on a pedestal.
Might get him a statue.
Mm-hmm.
So my big takeaway, and we'll end on this, is
Okay.
that I
get the
was
last
actually
word.
encouraged to see in the stands so many fans. It was through social distancing, we had more fans at Razorback games than we did in last season's game. I thought that was impressive.
How long you work on that little shot?
About 10 seconds,
okay.
because it just popped in my head.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank
Well,
you, John Brummett.
My pleasure as always. I think we had a very fine discussion on many important topics here today.
As always.
All right.
All right. That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.